What is cracking, Hope Nation? It is your friendly neighborhood Kevin Hines, and this is yet again another episode of the Hinesights podcast, no pun intended. Family, friends, colleagues, listeners, viewers, and subscribers, my next guest is extremely blessed to be alive, and he is now helping others to find hope through his story. We are so very lucky to have him join us on the Hinesights podcast. To say he's triumphed over adversity is at best an understatement. His name is Patrick Lomantini, and over the last 16 years, he's dedicated his career to the artistry of hair as a master stylist and skilled barber. His haircuts and styles are bananas and incredible. In 2010, he discovered a unique way to merge his love for hairstyling with his compassion for homeless animals, giving rise to the impactful initiative known as Bark-Aid. Embarking on a remarkable journey, Patrick traversed all 50 states for 7 years, passionately spreading awareness about the cause. Hailing from Kansas City, Missouri, Patrick's roots run deep in the heartland. Beyond his professional pursuits, Patrick is a devoted father to 4 children, finding joy and purpose in life wherever he goes. However, life took a very challenging turn for Patrick as he faced a failed marriage and the subsequent loss of everything he held dear. Struggling with the weight of despair, he experienced a dark moment on March 19th, 2023, when he attempted to take his life. This pivotal event marked the turning point in Patrick's existence, propelling him into a journey of self-discovery and true resilience. Today, he channels his personal struggles into helping others navigate the pitfalls of life, sharing his experiences and lessons learned to inspire hope and resilience in those who may be facing similar challenges. Patrick's story is one of transformation, resilience, and a commitment to making a positive impact on the lives of others. He's an avid follower of David Goggins. Please give him an uproarious welcome to the Hinesights podcast, the incredible Patrick Lomantini. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. That was one incredible introduction, and thank you. And the one word that stuck out the most out of all those words and beautiful words that you just said about me was resilience. And I discovered that we as a human race are very resilient individuals.
We are. It's nothing but the truth. We have to be. We need to be. And those of us that are lacking resilience, the good news is resilience can be taught and resilience can be learned.
Absolutely.
Patrick, let's get to the I think maybe the most important question. How are you feeling today?
Man, I feel dangerous. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but I feel incredible. One of the things that I am literally the best version of myself right now that I could possibly be at 55 years old. I'm in the best shape of my life. I actually went out and got braces. I thought, you know what? It's never too late to improve yourself. And I started doing Krav Maga. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of Krav Maga.
Yeah. Krav Maga. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I just want to get out there and just like, so that's exactly what they say before class, after class. How do you feel? Dangerous. I feel dangerous. So I feel fantastic. Actually, I wish. Well, I don't know if I should say I wish. I just feel the best I possibly could ever feel in my life that I can remember.
Well, let's talk about what you've been through, because we're asking you how you're feeling today, knowing by all accounts you shouldn't be here.
Oh, I'm not. No.
And you attempted to take your life in a very we're not getting into the nature of it, but you attempted to take your life in a very dangerous way that could have exited you from this world. On all accounts, you should not be here. It's kind of similar to my story of the 1% that survived the Golden Gate Bridge, but you survived something very horrific that you did to yourself.
Yes.
What led you there, and how did you get past that moment?
What led me there was I literally had no hope. I lost hope, and I think that's something that we need to realize, that we do have hope regardless of where you are in that thought process. But that's where I was at. I had lost everything. In January, I lost the life that I was counting on, the best friend that was supposedly my best friend, my wife, for 5 years. And it all was taken away from me in a dramatic fashion. You know, the dogs, the neighborhood, the house, all of it just gone. And without closure. And that was the biggest thing that bothered me the most. There wasn't a conversation. There wasn't like this, hey, this isn't working out. We need to be done with each other. It was just over. And I just couldn't handle it. I didn't handle it very well. And quite frankly, this is probably new news to you. We didn't really cover this, but this was my second attempt because in February I tried, failed. It turned into an absolute disaster circus, and was at the psych unit, and that was when I knew I had no hope at the most because she never called me. Nobody called to see how I was doing. It was nothing. And so after that attempt in February, I was just like in this massive spiral down. And I tried to recover by doing a podcast called Surviving Suicide and all the stuff in between, things in life that we go through. And I wasn't prepared for that, Kevin. So I started doing it, but it wasn't therapeutic for me. It wasn't helping me because I wasn't through what I was going through. And so when March came around, I remember that day vividly. I was doing a podcast on Robin Williams, and because you just don't know what people are going through. And that podcast on Robin Williams was kind of what tipped me over because what happened to him, you just on the outside, everything was great. And so that day I was just prepared for it to be over. Yeah.
Well, I'm just very glad you're alive and that you're here to tell your story.
I'm very blessed. Yes.
Yeah, it's let me ask you this. At what point after your attempt did you find a path to, I guess, well-being or better well-being? How did you get to a better path? How did you find hope again? Is my question.
Oddly enough, legal system and my lawyer, because I was what I did that day created a lot of legal problems for myself. And so while I was on vacation, quote unquote, I kept thinking about how I could continue to end this thing. And my lawyer, when he met with me to talk about what is going on, he didn't leave me much hope at all. And so I was just in despair. I mean, literally just comatose, that just didn't want to move.
Mm.
And he came back to me a couple months later and he said, I have a pathway for you that I'm going to just tell you. He told me that he was going to get me off on temporary insanity. Now, I don't know if you know anything about that or how hard it is to prove that you were temporarily insane. It is damn near impossible. But he said, that whole incident that you created on March 19th just looks like a really bad day, Kevin. And so he says, I need you to trust me. He goes, I need you to believe in me. I need you to have a little bit of hope because I'm going to get this done. So I waited a few months to talk to a psychiatrist. And the thing, Kevin, is I don't remember any of it. I know you saw the video and I know it's out there, but I don't remember any of it. And my therapist told me that that's the way that the brain works sometimes. It does that to protect you from trauma. I don't know. So I met with the psychologist, told him, the therapist, psych, whatever his name is, or whatever the title would be. And it came back and I was determined that on that day, I lacked any judgment of right or wrong and I was temporarily insane. And for that, I'm here talking to you. So yeah, I go to therapy, which I'm actually glad I do. I think a lot of people could benefit from it, but of course our medical system in this country is backwards. Your level of care is only as good as what you can pay for. And there's a lot of people that could really, really use, time to talk to a neutral party. So anyway, yeah. So that's what led me there. It was despair. It was no hope. It was the loss of everything. And that's a problem that I think a lot of us go through, is that we put our self-identity into something or someone else. And then when that vanishes, who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what happened to me.
It's like the people that their whole identity is their job.
Yes.
Or their whole identity is being married to this person.
Yes.
Or their whole identity is being the owner of a particular business or something like that. So
yes, absolutely.
So when any of those things fall apart, they don't know who they are, where they're going, or how they get to the next point.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm not the only one.
No, you're not the only one.
No. And so as I jumped into this and found you, but along my way to finding you was, wow, this is quite a problem. How do we help fix this mental health issue? Is it fixable? I don't know, but what can we do to help bring more awareness to it?
Yeah. And we have to bring more awareness. We have to bring more education. We also have to bring solutions to change, right? Because without solutions to change, the awareness is useless. Okay.
Yep.
Patrick, by the way, Patrick is my father's name. So
fantastic. Great name.
Patrick, I want to ask you this question because I think you have an opinion on it, and I'd like to hear your opinion. How do you feel today about support groups, friends and family getting involved? Do support groups work, and do they help in your opinion? And how do you feel about family and friends support as it pertains to your particular story?
That question has a lot of layers in the answer. I had a support group. I remember I mentioned just a few minutes ago that I had attempted in February. Then I surrounded myself with some guys that were my friends that kind of knew what was going on and I could lean on them. But that day in question, I didn't want to talk to anybody. So that support group really didn't mean anything to me because I wasn't going to call them or engage. I think it's important to have a support group, but I think a support group needs to be engaged earlier than when I developed mine. Does that make sense? I developed my support group when I was already down the rabbit hole. And on that day in question, I was pretty determined. Having said that, I think a support group is very important, and it's important that you choose them wisely because I know too often other people that are in the situation where the support group gets tired of hearing your story over and over again. Their eyes glaze over, and then they start saying things like "get over it." It's like, you're not my support group. That's not a good support group. That's not good support. So it's important to choose them wisely, and also it's important for us as we go through that, as we have that support, is to not burn that support group out. Yeah, I mean it's kind of a balance. They can't carry your water for you. They can only help you, and then in those times downtime. I think what's important about the support group is we need to change the way we think about support group, and which we talked a little bit about it earlier in the world of technology and biometrics, and having that support group be more involved in your life as far as seeing how your status is going by the use of biometrics. That's just one aspect, but also educating the support group too, because you get a person in there and say, "Oh yeah, I'm your buddy. Yeah, call me anytime," but they're not prepared for that. There's got to be some sort of education for a support group too, and what to expect. Like I would love to be somebody's support group, but I'm still in the process of healing myself.
Yeah.
So at this point in my life, I'm here to share my journey. I'm here to tell you what I went through, what I did to myself, and how I'm recovering from it. I'm not in a position right now to be your support group. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you have to know your boundaries, know what you can and can't accomplish as a support person, and if you're the right person for that kind of a job, really, because
Right.
it's very interesting when I tell people to be honest about their pain to one person willing to empathize because the pain shared is the pain halved. I don't just always mean just going up to a random person because sometimes people can't comprehend that kind of a problem or an issue. But what you want to do is go up to someone and say, "Hey, I've got some things going on that are really difficult and tough. Are you willing to hear them and be here for me in this moment, or is it something that might be too difficult for you to process? It's about my own brain and mental health. I'm struggling. Can I rely on you to be there for me in this moment? Can I tell you what I'm going through?" That way, you're setting up the person to say, "Look, man, I don't have the capacity to be here for you in this moment because I'm also, like you are. I'm also going through some stuff and healing myself." Or the person can say, I'm your guy. I'm your person. Like I got your back, whatever you're going through." I did this a while back with one of my best friends, Jake, and I said, actually, he was the one that said to me, we were outside of Giorgio's Pizza Restaurant in San Francisco, and he goes, "Kevin, you can't tell everyone everything. You
You're
just,"
right.
he says, "you can't." He says, "You come to me and say, is this something I can share with you that you can deal with?" And obviously he was one of those guys, and I tell him all that kind of stuff and we get through it together. Just like I talked to my wife, Margaret, my lovely wife, Margaret, who's always ready to take on the difficult task. But I think you really have to be picky on who you share with, because there's a difference between sharing and disclosing, and which one are you doing? And they're very important to discern the two.
Right. I have a life coach guy that I work with, and he's been very helpful. His daughter took her life 2 years ago, and it took him 2 years to be able to talk about it. And now I kind of lean on him a little bit. But the problem is like you just said, I'm limited in my conversation and my vocabulary with him because he cannot handle the suicide word. The word
No.
suicide is a trigger for him.
Yeah.
And to me, it just one of the questions I know we're going to get to as far as triggers, I kind of run toward the trigger because I want to accomplish it and defeat it and put it behind me. I don't want it to be something I'm afraid of. But you're right. You can only talk so much to certain people. And let me give you an example of a support group and choosing them wisely. My very good friend, Tad Godsky, back home in Kansas. I've known him for 30 years. And I needed him, and I called him that night before I did what I did. I said, dude, I didn't call him. Let me rephrase that. I texted him. I said, could you give me a call tomorrow? I could use a conversation. He says, sure, I'll call you right after church, which would have been around noon, 1 o'clock. I did what I did around late afternoon, around 3:30, 4 o'clock. When it all had calmed down and I got my phone back after all of it, I looked at missed phone calls and the time. He called me at 4. Now, had he called me at 1, I think I would have had my thought pattern changed a little bit because I asked him to call me.
Yeah.
But he didn't call me until after I had already did the deal.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so being all of you out there that are wanting to be a supporter or a support group, it's important to be there for them when they need you, you know? Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I told him that, and I can't tell you that guy, he feels terrible about it. I didn't tell him that on purpose to make him feel bad, but I wanted to share that with him and make him realize how important, not just my friendship, but anybody's friendship, is how important and valuable that is.
Yeah. And when you say you're going to take an action to help someone, then take the action at that time.
Right.
But we also have to take responsibility for our own actions as well.
Right.
And I don't think you're laying blame there, which is really makes
it was just I just found it ironic, you know. One of the things I've been proud about as far as my life in general as a whole is I've never blamed anyone for anything that I've gone through.
Yeah.
I take full responsibility for that day, and in an odd sort of way, I don't know that I don't want to get off. I know you're gonna. I'm glad. Saying I'm glad it happened is a terrible thing to say.
No, but as someone who's been there, let's just put it like this: in a different but very similar dangerous situation that I put myself in, where I easily should have died.
Yes.
Getting to live from that experience, for me, it was an instant regret the moment I leapt off the bridge, because I realized in that moment I didn't want to die. That's what I mean by that. But as it pertains to what you're saying, I think that there's an aspect of it where we have to say, if what we didn't happen, we would not be who or where we are today.
Absolutely. I am actually 100%.
Yeah. Everything that happens to you happens for you to set you up for something greater.
There's an old Confucius saying that I ran across here recently that said, your second life begins when you realize you only have one. And that hit hard because we only have one chance. And for the fact that you and I right now are living that second chance is a beautiful thing. And it's put us on this platform to help others not have to ever get there. And that's what's important to me, is to not ever get there. I sit down with a very good friend of mine, Greg, and he was like, at what point are you trying to intervene with someone? Are you trying to intervene with them when they're having anxiety or depression, or are you trying to get to them before they have the suicidal ideologies, or are you trying to catch that guy that's on the cliff? Yeah. You know, I said all of them.
All the above.
All of them. I'm not trying to pick and choose. Every life means something to me.
Yeah, that's really important. I think it's, to stray off topic for a bit, we can all be stewards of change for people in brain pain, because that's what it is. Your brain is the most powerful organ in your body. It's the strongest muscle in your body. And yet when we look at the liver, heart, and lungs, and if someone has liver, heart, and lung disease, what happens? Everybody shows up at the hospital. Everybody's got teddy bears and flowers and cards. What happens the first time you show up at a psych ward? Who comes to see you? Hardly anybody. Nobody or hardly anybody.
Right.
And that's wrong. Your brain is an organ just like every other organ in the body, and it too can become diseased.
Yes.
And so when you recognize that, when you see it as a brain health issue as opposed to a mental health issue, you make it tangible. It's as real as the hands in front of my face. If they do surgery on your brain, they're going to touch it. They're going to feel it, right? Brain pain is a more accurate way of thinking about it. Brain health, brain disease, brain struggles?
I would love your take on that. I talked about this very same subject with a therapist, and her take in her career are there's two types of people that are considering it, or a lot of them need help and need attention to an issue in their life, and other ones just want the pain to go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just want. And I think that day on March 19th, I just wanted the pain to go away.
See, it's so important, and people mention this, but you have to think about it in a different way, right? So answer me this, Patrick, out loud. Here we go. What is the one thing you want to happen when you find yourself in excruciating physical pain? What do you want that pain to do?
You want it to go away.
Stop, go away, end. That's
Yes.
physical pain. My argument is that brain pain is 300,000 times worse than any physical pain I've ever experienced in my life. And
Absolutely.
I experience physical pain on a daily basis, excruciating because of what I did to myself, right? So, so if we can recognize the brain pain before it gets to a place of danger for someone or who we love or for ourselves, then we can get to the person and get them to safety, which is why we need to have the conversation of suicide prevention at the breakfast, lunch, and dinner table in every house in this country and around the globe, because we will be remiss to see someone we love pass away that way rather than us be involved and having the conversation in the first place so we get the right answers to the right questions.
Right. There's suicide prevention posters in grade schools and middle schools, and I was talking to a client of mine about it, and his response was, well, at least they put the poster up. The problem is there's no conversation. Nobody's talking at the dinner table. Families aren't talking about it. Why is there a poster there? You've got a child that walks through the hallway at a school and looks at a poster. Is that supposed to mean something to them?
Well, we actually run campaigns where we have very specific posters of they're called the lifesaver posters, and they give tools to asking the right questions. And then the poster is put in PDF form, given to the parents, and the parents are instructed to have the conversation. Now,
Good.
we can't as a group, we can't guarantee that they're having that conversation at home, but we've implanted the seeds. The kids know what to tell their parents. The parents have the documented information, and hopefully the conversations are being had. We've actually heard some positive reactions from some of them.
Good.
You are right in the sense that if it's just a poster, that's not good enough. Not sufficient enough. We need to do more. We need to take more action to reach more people, to keep more people alive, safe, and well. Patrick,
Well said.
What do you see in the future that can help support groups be more engaged?
More education. I think right now, what I've noticed in social media, it's a little bit, it's more, for lack of a better phrase, active. You know, I see more of it on social media now.
Yeah.
Hopefully that brings attention more. But I think it's education and just reaching out and having those conversations. But you know, that's a great question. I'm not really sure how to go about that. So I'd love to hear your take on that, because I really don't know, other than my own experience and what I'm willing to do as a support person, and what I'd be willing to do as far as making sure, checking in on them, making sure they're okay. It's interesting because I have very few, after all I've been through, very few people check on me on a regular basis.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's rough.
No, but I've learned to accept it, because I also, not only did I say earlier that we are resilient as humans, but we're also limited, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We're limited as far as how much, because, you know, we're all so busy in our lives, and children and school and work and all the things that we're doing. And then you've got this person that needs your personal attention. It's a lot to ask from somebody at times.
It can be. And I think we have to consider giving each other a bit more attention when we've struggled so deeply. And for those of you watching, listening, and viewing and subscribing, here's your homework for today. After this show is over and you've taken it all in, I want you to consider calling 3 to 5 people, or at the very least making a short video for them. It's all capable on your phone. Make a short video for them and just tell them you love them. 3 to 5 people. Maybe they're people you haven't talked to in a while because you're holding a grudge. Maybe there are 3 to 5 people that you haven't talked to for a while just because you separated over time. Family issues have gotten in the way. You've had children. You're busy at work. I don't care what the issue is. Call 3 to 5 people today, or send them a video message. Tell them you love them. Tell them you're thinking about them. Tell them they matter. Here's the thing. I do this every day with people I love and care for. I regularly reach out to my family and friends and colleagues even, and tell them how much they mean to me. And if I haven't done that to you yet, if you know me, I'm going to start doing that now. And Patrick, I'm going to be doing this with you after we get off this podcast. What's your advice for supporting a suicide survivor?
My advice for supporting a suicide survivor is be engaged and be involved in their life. Be genuinely interested in how they're doing and what they're doing, and offer any kind of support you can. You'd be surprised that a guy that I met at Krav Maga, and he knows my story, took me to dinner, and that dinner meant the most amazing thing to me because he took a genuine interest in understanding what I've been through, where I've been going, and where I'm headed to. And he said something to me that I thought was extremely interesting. He goes, "I'm invested." And I said, "What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, Scott?" He goes, "I'm invested in you and in what you're doing and what you're going through." So that kind of stayed with me. And I'm like, that's a great way to tell somebody that you're invested in them. Yeah. And with no strings attached. I'm here for you. I'm interested in what's going on, and just let's do this thing. And it's not going to happen overnight. I think a lot of times, and what I've discovered with some of my support group people, is they expect it to get over it. Just get over it. Yeah, why aren't you over this? Why aren't you over it? And it took me a while. It took me a long time to get over what I went through and why I went through it. And when I finally got through the why and started discovering the what, that's when things changed for me. So it wasn't the why. I was never going to get closure, or the why I did what I did to myself, I'll never understand. But what do I do with it now? And so I've discovered through prayer and engaging with other people, my what is to help other people not get to that point.
And that way you found your how. How do you continue? How do you move forward? How do you help other people? That's incredible.
Absolutely.
That's
exactly.
Incredible. Let's get into what you're creating right now with what you're developing. How can technology change the future of suicide prevention? And what are you working on right now that you can tell us about?
What's interesting about that, first of all, I had to discover what the company's name was going to be. And so that was tough. I mean, I was going through all these different names of, redemption and salvation. And there's just a gazillion words out there. And I used ChatGPT to come up with all these different words. And I look them up, and there's so many other people already either using them, or it wasn't really catchy and it wasn't unique to me. So there's a song by Pink Floyd called "Wish You Were Here." And a girlfriend of mine back in 2016, her name was Kyli, and she said, "This is our song," because there's a lyric in the song that says, "We're just two lost souls swimming in a fish bowl." And that song came to me when I was headed down to Florida to go see my friend Paul for Christmas. And as I'm driving down there, the song came on, and I'm like, I'm going to name this company Kyli. And I was going to use it as an acronym, not only to remember her, because she passed away and she committed suicide in 2017. I forgot to tell you that part. Yeah. She overdosed in 2017. So I thought, what a great way to remember her, but also use it as an acronym for keeping your life in focus. Wow. Drop the E. I couldn't put the E. Her name was actually spelled with an E. Tried to look that up on trademarking. Kylie Jenner has got her name locked down on every avenue and trademark. So I got dropped the E and made it Kyli, keeping your life in focus. A play on words, but it's actually what a company is about. It's about keeping your life in focus. And that's what the whole problem is, Kevin, is that we lose focus on our own lives. Yeah. And we get lost in the darkness, in the fog. And then before you know it, you're so lost, you don't know how to get back. So it's about keeping your life in focus. While I was on vacation recovering from my situation, I thought, how could what I have gone through been prevented? And so I thought about technology and the Aura Ring or the Fitbit or the Whoop watch, how they keep track of various things like your sleeping patterns, your heart rate variables, your oxygen intake, your movement, all those various things that you can develop an algorithm that can determine crisis. And I'm like, wow. Because they use biometrics right now for all types of things. A lot of life coaches use it. A lot of sprinters and athletes use it to make, keep track of how their standards. I'm like, how could we have used this for that? And lo and behold, there are other companies out there trying to do the exact same thing. So one of them is a veteran group called Envy, and they're very specific on the target market for that. But my question to you is, if let's say you're a parent, and you discovered, hey, there's this ring out there that can help determine crisis. So there's a platform like, do you have I was going to ask you if you had a barber, but I don't think you do.
I'm my own barber. I do myself.
But what I'm saying, it's a two face platform app. One is I can see my own statistics, I can see my own vitals, but my support group has their version of my app. So you have, let's say, 3 or 4 people that are on your support group that can see Patrick's vitals on his phone. And if he's having problems, or he hasn't slept good in 2 days, or his heart rate is elevated over a long period of time, or whatever, a little beep goes off, or whatever, an alarm goes off on your phone. So it allows your support group to see what's going on, because I guarantee you most people are not going to call their support group, because I didn't call my support group.
Yeah.
But if my support group was able to see Patrick was in physical issue, having a physical problem, they could reach out to me. And here's the thing. It's just about changing your thought pattern just a little bit. So many people think that in order to change their life, they have to do a 180. Sometimes you just have to nudge that thing 2 degrees.
Yeah.
Because where we're going will change completely just by those 2 degrees. So what I'm trying to say is, if somebody could have, like, for example, my friend Tad that didn't call me till 4, but let's say he had the app and saw that I was going through some problems, he could have changed my thought pattern much earlier in the day.
Yeah.
And had that conversation to where I would have never gotten there. So another thing that inspired me while I was recovering, I was watching this news channel, and they had a guy on there that created a anonymous text line, suicide text line. His best friend took his life. So he created this anonymous text line where people could call in or text and talk to somebody. And he had these statistics that last year, 12,000 people utilized that text line. And he was able to determine that he de-escalated 237 suicide attempts. Now, that's a text line. That means somebody literally had to pick up their phone and text to talk to somebody. How many can we de-escalate, Kevin, by having a biometric ring on?
Yeah.
So it's about de-escalation. It's about, putting up that barrier to just have that moment to where we can change their thought pattern.
You had the experience, you found a solution. And then we talked about that earlier, is how do we not just bring awareness, we bring solutions, and you're doing it, and it's incredible. And we appreciate you for it, brother. What other resources or organizations have been beneficial to you in your recovery?
It's interesting, as I dove into this, there's a lot of nonprofits out there. There's 5 big ones. But I never really reached out to them. I've really been just kind of leaning in on my therapy and doing my podcast. And my friend Alex, whose podcast room that I'm in right now, it's under remodeling right now. That's why I'm using the laptop. He said something that I thought was very profound, and I'm sure you can relate to this. He goes, once you start doing this podcast and discovering and sharing your journey, you're going to learn so much about it, as well as learn about yourself. And it has really been the biggest resource for me, is just to be completely honest with my therapist, do some self-discovery. I did this one thing that I thought was phenomenal, and I would encourage everybody to do it. Is you ever heard of timeline therapy, where you go through your life and you try to discover where some of these traumas are coming from? Because that's what we're dealing with, brother, is we're dealing with traumas. And one of the things that I believe a lot of us do, especially me, is that we sweep a lot of this dirt under the rug, and we just ignore it. And then one day somebody comes along and pulls the rug up, and it all hits you. And it's like, wow. And that's what happened. All that stuff came at me, stuff that I didn't deal with or go after. And that's why we talked a little bit earlier about triggers. And I'd love to talk about that. A lot of people want to avoid the triggers, and I totally understand that. But my personality is I want to go after the trigger and defeat the trigger, so I don't have to worry about it.
Go at it head on, right?
Yeah, that's just my approach. It's not for everybody.
I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that. I've got a friend, Matt Runnels, out of Australia, who's a big mental health advocate over there, brain health advocate. His motto is, fuck the triggers, do the work.
Yeah, I love it.
Like that. Isn't that great?
I love it.
And it's not for everybody. Well, people get upset with him about it, but I can appreciate it, because if you allow the triggers to destroy you, they will. But if you allow them to build you, they will. Just like if you allow your pain to destroy you, you can.
Right.
But instead you allow your pain to build you brick by brick from the ground up until you're stronger than ever.
Right.
So it's a choice you're making. And I know it's not an easy choice.
Right.
For a lot of people, when they have sensitive issues that come along their way that affect them or bring them flashbacks or bring them into the situation they were in when they were traumatized, they can be very dangerous and very scary. So we have to be aware of that.
Right. As I mentioned earlier, like this life coach I work with, he's more of my spiritual coach, I would say, than life. But he can't say the word suicide, but I hit it head on. But when I'm with him, I have to respect that, and I can't say the word. We say the S word, Like, for example, like you said earlier, like there are certain songs that were my ex-wife's songs, and so I would avoid the song, and I'm like, fuck that, I like that song, So so it's just your approach of what you need to do to find that mental happiness.
Yeah.
It like you said, it's so different for everybody, but we all have to understand that that's the issue that I mentioned earlier, is that so many people in my own support group are like, aren't you over this yet? And I'm like, dude, I'll probably never be over it. I mean, this is a life journey now. This is a life mission and a purpose now, for me to understand it and find that target audience and share that. And when I say target, we talked about that earlier off pod, but I think it's all of the above. I was trying to find that target audience that I could relate to the most. It's like, man, everybody's going through this mental pain. So basically it's everybody.
Yeah, it is everybody. Everybody's got pain from something somewhere. Pain is universal. And I think it will benefit a lot of the people listening and watching and subscribing, because they need this message from someone who's been there. That's not me, someone who's been there in a different situation, but who's come out to give back to other people and share some hope, and not just some inactionable hope, but hope with action, hope with due diligence, hope with like actually doing the work and changing your perspective and finding the light at the end of the tunnel. It's incredible.
You had mentioned there's only 1% that survived your jump. But I mean, what is the percentage of people that have actually survived what we've been through? It's got to be minuscule.
It's very minuscule. I mean, I can only speak to the Golden Gate. The Golden Gate Bridge attempt is 99.9% fatal.
Yes.
So to say that you and I are lucky to be here, as I said in the intro, is an understatement. We are so blessed to be here. I thank God for existence every waking moment of each and every day.
Amen.
I think that I want to respect the people that don't have the faith I have, or the faith we have. That's their prerogative, that's their perspective, that's fine. And they always bark at me online. But I know God saved my life. When that sea lion, which this is Herbert the sea lion.
I see that. I love it.
Lifted me up and
That's amazing.
Kept me afloat in the water until the Coast Guard boat arrived behind me. You can't tell me that wasn't God saying, I got your back. And people always ask me, if God saved your life, why didn't he save all these other people? And I don't have the answer to that question. I just know this. I've spent the last 24 years sharing stories around the world in every medium you can possibly think of. And hundreds of thousands of people have said that this story saved their life. And so I'm going to continue to do this work, just like the work you're doing. And if I can help you or people like you in any way, I will, to the best of my ability, because I think you're doing an incredible job sharing your story. And I think more people need to hear it. I want to give you my final question for you, and then open up the floor for you to ask me some questions.
Okay, great.
What would you say right now, in this moment, in the present day, to someone currently struggling with thoughts of ending it all? How do you help them stay here?
The sun will come up tomorrow, and suicide is a permanent solution to something that's temporary. What you're going through is just temporary. It's not the solution, and it's not the answer. The sun will come up tomorrow. The river will flow again. Everything continues to move, and it moves better with you in it. You have value, you are needed, and you are loved. I would start there.
Thank you, Patrick Lomantini, for coming on the Hinesights podcast. Friends, family, colleagues, listeners, viewers, subscribers, this has been another episode. We're glad to have you with us. Share this episode with one friend in need who's struggling with brain pain, because I know it could help them. And whatever you do, my friends, be here tomorrow and every single day after that. You are valued, you are loved, you are worthy, you matter, you're important to us. And if nobody else says it today, we love you and we want you to stay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.